Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest fights to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
A lot of the old people around where I came from was, they was some of the best dog men I ever been around. Still yet to this day.
Who's that?
But a lot of the old guys around where I was raised at. I mean, I always hunted with older people. I mean, that's just they was a bunch of them. I mean, like around where we lived at down there. I mean, squirrel hunting. If you pulled up to anybody's house in that country where I lived at when we was a kids, younger.
Mm-hmm.
Every house had a squirrel dog. I mean, you wouldn't pull up to one house. Even my dad, the best walker dog he ever had, he got it from one of our cousins' grandma had her, and she squirrel hunted her. she was 7 years old, and the little walker female, go out there and treat squirrels, and she go kill them to her, and skin them and eat them.
Yeah.
It was just it always was a big thing in the country we lived in,
Do you think that's like remnants of like the Great Depression and subsistence hunting?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. There wasn't nothing to do. I mean, when my dad was a kid, I mean, they used to eat possums and everything. I mean, they had to. I mean, they eat groundhogs, the old dirt, my mama's house and dad's house, the chickens would be underneath the floor and they just lift a plank up and get eggs. I mean, it was pretty rough around here. We're pretty rural, where we live at. Just give you a kind of idea where we live, it used to be really rural, and now it's not quite as rural as what it used to be. I mean, but it's still pretty rural around here,
And you're like central Tennessee, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We live in Livingston, Tennessee. I used to live where I raised up at was towards Willow Grove. It's like there's a lake down there. It's like one of the boat docks. It's called Willow Grove.
Okay.
But anyway, we raised up down there. But getting back to kindly, every house had a squirrel dog. But and we's kind of competitive. I mean, you know how it is. I mean, we'd all hunt together a little bit. All of us would and get together and we take our dogs out, and we's all pretty competitive with it. But back then, I mean, we treed squirrels. We didn't care about the circle tree stuff.
Yeah.
we like now, the dogs was a little bit different back then than what I think we got now, because, and that goes with, I think, what you're breeding at the time, what's winning is what dictates what's going to be bred. You know what I mean? That's
always is.
That's kind of how that works, I think, but back then we didn't even circle tree. We'd be like, what are you talking about? The dog didn't have a squirrel. We don't know what circle trees was back in them days. All we went by was my dog trees 6. If my dog trees 6 and out of 6 trees and your dog trees 6 out of 12 trees, I mean, we probably think more of my dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because walking up down these mountains is pretty rough, but
I bet.
But anyway, nowadays, it's kind of a different ball game now, than what it used to be.
Oh, for sure.
Like I said, that kind of dictates stuff. But
no, I'm sure having such a hard tree dog or a dog that was a little loose or a dog that timbered back then wasn't nearly as big of a deal.
No. I mean, it didn't have nothing to do with it.
A lot of squirrel hunters that just want to shoot squirrels for the pot, they want a dog with timber.
Oh, yeah. Shadow, I won 5-year-old hunts, but, she'll timber a squirrel.
Okay.
She will. I mean, everybody acts like you can't win with one that she dominant. I mean, I'm not going to say she won like 26 out of 27 in one stretch cash,
oh, wow.
And I won 2 world hunts, 2 state hunts. I mean, that was just one stretch that she done that. She done it 2 different stretches.
Oh, wow.
I started her out. And I won 2 world hunts back to back, and I put her up. And I didn't hunt her for 3 or 4 or 5 years in hunts, and I brought her back out and won 2 more back to back. 2 more state hunts, and I just put her back up again. But it's just the way. I don't know. you know how. But she would timber a squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, most of the time when you walk in there is when he would timber, so it really didn't hurt her because you was seeing it. You know what I mean? When you walked in there to her, she had such good eyes and ears. It was kind of crazy, really, to watch her, you know, stand there and listen for one, and she turn her head sideways, and you be standing there fixing to turn her loose, and she just turn her head sideways and just stare that way. That's where she went and treed. I mean, you know, and she'd have it when you got in there. You didn't have to worry about her not having stuff when she treed. But yeah, they was going back to some of the older guys, man. They was some down there where we lived at, man. My dad and Jad Reagan, Tojo Hummel. I hunted with all them guys, and I always hunted with older guys all my life. I never did hunt with nobody my age, hardly ever. And my brother's a real dog man, but they was some of the best dog men down in there that's probably I've ever been around. I mean, they was real. They could train dogs. I mean, that's all they ever done in this country before them, and then I think they just passed it on down, and they learned all that from from the ones before them, you know. And dogs was just a big thing around here, you know. It always was back then, and it ain't now. It's kind of sad now. I mean, you can't go to many houses it's got a squirrel dog now, just honestly around here, if any, much. I'm the only one I know within a pretty good sized area, me anyway.
Yeah.
But squirrel hunting wasn't as big back, you know, way back then. You know, with some of the old guys was, you know, you probably, I don't know if you heard or you read any of the history of the Mountain Curs, but anyway, like Sam Moody and Bill Davis and some of them guys, you ever heard of them, the Roaring River Dogs?
I've heard of the Roaring River Dogs. I don't know much about them.
That's just about 10 or 15 miles from my house.
Okay.
Then the Carlock, which was A.D. Ledbetter's wife's family, they lived about 3 miles where I live now.
Oh, wow.
The Highland Mountain, where he talks about in that book. So all the Ledbetter dogs all come from right in here. Mm-hmm. A.D. got out of dogs, and Sam Moody gave A.D. Ledbetter the Roaring River Dixie dog, which is pretty much the start of the Roaring River Dogs is pretty much the start of all the A.D. Ledbetter dogs, honestly. Okay.
Interesting.
So anyway, that's kind of some of that, you know. But them guys, I hunted with Sam one time. I hunted with Bill several times. Bill was a character. He was something else. He was one of the funnest guys there. He was fun to be around. Mm-hmm. He was really fun. He kept the Roaring River name going after Sam died there. He kept the Roaring River name going for several years after that.
Okay.
But them was some great guys. I mean, and like I said, my dad, he had a lot of good dogs in his life. He had a lot of, he liked small dogs. So he'd breed his Mountain Curs really small, right? Okay. I mean, and you probably heard of a lot of his line in that, like the Bill Barger, the little baldy dog at Bill's, and a lot of Bill's dogs, the Barker stock, that come from my dad.
Okay. Yeah.
The little dog gets in all these Feist dogs pedigrees. She come from my dad. Dad is like the real small cur dog, you know, and he bred them to be small. And he'd get a small female, and he'd raise it and breed it to a male that throws small pups, and he'd just get small pups. But Dad squirrel hunted a lot back at that time. But that's back. He had doe when he had cancer, so I hunted doe a lot for him before he passed. But
gotcha.
Doe was a good little dog, but there's a lot of. But back to the story, I was going to tell you something about one of my buddies. I hunted with Danny Lee Smith a lot, and some of them old guys, and Rod Padgett was another one. I don't know. You probably never heard of Rod Padgett, I guess.
No, can't say I have.
Okay, you know, Rod was a big dog man at one time. You know, he had a lot of dogs and moved a lot of dogs. You know, he'd come around by the house, and when I was a little kid, him and Doc Music was from Ohio, and they come around. All these communities all had squirrel dogs, so they come around and buy them all up. See, then they take them and sell them to somebody for a lot more. I'm sure what he gave us. I'm expecting, you know. But anyway, they was something else. Rod up in the 90s there, you know, after Squirrel kind of got a little bit more popular, you know. Mm-hmm. Me and Rob was talking one time, and I still remember this, and I'll probably remember it till I die. he looked at me. He said, "You know what?" And I said, "What, Rod?" He said, "We were squirrel hunting when squirrel hunting wasn't cool." He said, I still this day remember that. Every time I think of Rod, I think of that.
Yeah.
He said, "We were squirrel hunting when squirrel hunting wasn't cool." And they wasn't 1986 was the first world squirrel hunt I ever remember. So there wasn't no world squirrel hunt. There wasn't even a competition squirrel hunt nowhere when we were squirrel hunting back in the, in the 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
So we was doing it then, like he said, when he wasn't, it wasn't a big thing to do, I guess, but it was around here, So that's kind of how I think the OMCBA dogs kind of evolved, into being more of a squirrel dog. They started getting really popular, the squirrel hunts did. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, before that, did the OMCBA, like you said, there was no squirrel hunts. Did they have coon hunts there?
Yes.
Okay.
They always had coon hunts, okay? Back, the ring-eye dog of Hugh Stevens, one of the first ever, I think the first or second meeting they ever had was 1957 was the first meeting, best I can remember. And maybe 58 might have been the second one. Anyway, they might have even skipped you there. I don't know. But I remember the first night hunt was either the first or second meeting, and then the ring-eye dog of Hugh Stevens, I remember he won it.
Gotcha.
He was a Stevens dog. He was the first dog registered, ring-eye dog was, and the tiger dog of A.D. Ledbetter's was the second.
Interesting.
And the tiger dog was out of the Roaring River Dixie dog that Sam Moody gave A.D. Ledbetter.
Okay.
So that's kind of some of the background, I guess. But the Stevens dogs is completely different dogs, as far as that goes. They had their own. Mm-hmm. They got their own line, but the A.D. Ledbetter line, which is what most of the OMCBA dogs is now, come from A.D. pretty much.
Okay. Well, like I said, I definitely want to get into all of that, but maybe we'll focus on OMCBA history for another day, because I think we need to focus on you, because give you some people context of who you are. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Bobby Taylor. I live in Livingston, Tennessee, and but just always loved squirrel hunting with dogs. I've done it. I mean, it's just most people don't realize, but the first time you ever hear a dog treed, I wanted to go to it, and that's kind of when I take kids hunting, that's the first thing I watch for. I mean, like my grandkids and stuff. Like if they don't have that in them to this. I wanted to run to that dog first time I ever heard it. And I never did. And they didn't tell me I needed to go to it or not. I just wanted to go to it,
Yeah.
I don't know if it done you that way, but it did me that way. And the first time I ever heard a dog treat, I'm like, man, let's go. I don't know what we're doing,
Yep. And
anyway, I just loved it ever since I've been, first time I ever went, I loved it, and but yeah, I've pleasure hunted a whole lot. In competition hunted some. I competition hunt until I get tired of it. You know how that goes. I mean, the rigmarole of just going and going on hunts, it just would get to me after a while. I don't think I'm built to just run the hunts. Every weekend, I don't think I could do that. I mean, I've never done that. Mm-hmm. All I ever done with Shadow or any of my dogs just went to world hunts pretty much, or state hunts, and that's about all I'd ever go to. I didn't chase Grand Squirrel Champions or Super Grands. I didn't ever chase none of that stuff.
Yeah.
She was just so good. I know she needed to be in something, and she deserved it. And I hated to not do it for her. I'm like, well, if she didn't deserve it, I wouldn't have took her. I know she deserved to be in them,
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
I'm not a big like I said, I like hunts pretty good, but I'm not one to just want to run to one every time they have one,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, they're good. I mean, they're good for the sport, honestly. I mean, I like the breeding part of it, probably, and the genetic part of it. I mean, evidently, I ain't figured out much on that, but
no, I really agree.
I don't know if anybody can.
Yeah. No, my wife asked me today, she's like, do you enjoy raising puppies? Because I got a litter here in the house. And she's like, do you really enjoy it? And I'm like, it's a lot of work. But I said, yeah, I actually do. I'm like, I
love them until they're 4 months old. I do. I love raising litter pups. I love to see them like your dogs. I think you fool with leopards, correct?
Yep.
Okay, like them, the different colors and I love to see like Mountain Curs. They liable to be blackens or brindle ones or yet. I love to see what's going to come out. I mean, you don't have a clue, do you?
Yeah.
Well, you do, but not 100%. There's always something can come up. I mean, I bred like that cane dog I had. I sold Alan. You breed him, and he throw yellow ones every time, and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he was brindle.
He's brindle, ain't he? I mean, I sold him to Alan when he was 2, and but yeah, you breed him, and he throw a yeller dog.
Yeah,
a whole litter of yeller pups. You just look at them and blue ones, and he throw blue ones too.
Yeah.
Didn't make no sense to me. And I'm like, man, what's going on here? It just don't make no. Them genes, he just had a gene for a blue and yeller, I guess, more than he.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you say because his phenotype, which is what you see, he was brindle. So how could he not have a brindle gene? I don't understand that. I don't know.
I've done some digging on color genetics with the leopard dogs, and I don't know enough about brindle and yellow to really give you a good answer. Just because I've dug more into leopard colors, which I'm not saying brindle and yellow can't happen, but they're not super common. It's more merle and black and tan.
Okay.
So, it's crazy once you dive into the world of color genetics in dogs. The way things get expressed, depending on the combination of what they get, is pretty crazy.
Expressed compared to what they are, is sometimes can be a little bit different too. I think what I understand, but going back to dog, it's just dogs is something. The genetic part. I mean, you scratch your head, don't you? Sometimes you just don't never know.
Exactly.
It's just hard to get that right combination, ain't it? And it seems like to me, you need a little bit too much of something to equal out to the middle road. You know what I mean? Like I've seen a lot of really hard tree dogs in my life bred to this just a normal dog, and they come out about right. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't like one just tearing a tree or chewing or nothing. I like one to sit there and just tree. Instead of.
Yep.
It seems like the radical type dog bred to a normal dog will throw a good tree dog. I don't know. It just don't make no sense, really.
Yeah.
Because I bred 2 radical dogs, and I didn't get radical dogs. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, I don't know how this stuff works. I ain't never. It's hard to figure.
Yeah, that's a whole nother ball game. Like I said, colors at least. I don't know. It's easier to track because you can do testing and you can figure out what they are, and with different traits, it's a crapshoot.
Yes, it is tough, ain't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about but. And then what I finally figured out was just breed them, and whatever it throws, that's pretty much what it's going to throw.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's about all you can do. I mean, you can sit there and look at them papers, and I tell you something I've heard that I think's a misconception because I don't think they've been around the same line of dogs long enough to see this. Just like the Duff's Bob dog and that line of dogs that goes down from him, which that's Hummer in that line, which I've got a dog out of Hummer and Shadow out here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know how many generations he'd be back in my dog. He'd be 7, 8, I don't know, at least 7, 8 generations at least.
Yeah.
And that tree style he had would skip here and there. The Apache dog treed like that. He stomped and stomped when he treed. Well, my Thunder dog does that. And look how far that's down that line.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that trait from 8 generations back probably to this day. It's still there, but it's like it skips here and there. It'll skip a litter. It'll skip like once or twice and it comes back out. Yeah. It'll skip once or twice. It comes back out. It's like because people says, well, if it ain't in the 3rd generation, you won't see it. That's wrong. That's wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I've seen it too much. My other line of dogs I've got a dog called Rowdy, which we won the world hunt with. He's out of Shadow in my Dan dog at home. And I've had them dogs for 7 generations.
Okay.
And the way that old gal female treed to begin with, they had a certain tree style to them. They stood at a tree and they looked at a certain way and they throw their head back a certain way and they had their legs like kind of a certain way. They stood a certain way when they're treeing, right?
Yeah.
And I still see that at 7 generations down from here. Still to this day in them dogs.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty
I still
interesting.
think stuff. I think if them genes is in there, I don't think they go away. I mean, they can come out at any time, I believe.
No, and I think you're right, but I also think with the more we line breed and all that is when you
Well,
especially
yeah,
see stuff pop up generations down the road. But it's like, yeah, like you said, Duff's Bob might be 7 or 8 generations back, but how many times is he in there? You know what I mean?
that's true. That's true because Patchy's mama was double bred
Mm-hmm.
Dust Bob. See, and that's probably and see my damn dog. The line I was telling you about there, we bred 2 first cousins together and got that line, on down the line. So that's probably where you're right. I'd say that's probably where that comes into play. I'd say if you outcross all the time, you probably wouldn't see it. I guess is what you're
Yeah.
saying. I guess.
Yep.
But yep. They something else. I mean, these dogs are.
So, have you always had OMCBA dogs, or have you had other stuff?
I've 90% of the time, I guess you could say, I've always loved a Stevens dog. I mean, I love a black dog. So anyway, my shadow dog has got Stevens in her. So
Okay.
it's way back. It's back when they was still in the OMCBA at one time. They left in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
Stevens was in it till 1970, and then they left. But anyway, she's got one of the crosses in her, a time or a couple times. But yeah, anyway, I would get me a couple Stevens here and there. I always have my Mountain Curs though, always, and I'd get a couple. Every time I get them though, I'd have a really good OMCBA dog, and then I'd get back rid of them. You know how it is.
Yep.
I'd get a really good OMCBA dog in, and I'd get a Stevens or two, and it'd be about the same time. I'm like, man, here we go again. I can't never. Anyway, and I had some leopards. I got some leopards from Rex Laker at one time.
Mm-hmm.
I got 2 or 3 of them, I think. One of them was bred to one of Rex's dogs, and I sold all them, I think. But
Okay.
But anyway, I like raising a dog from a pup. Honestly, if I'm gonna like a dog, it seems like I've got to raise it from a pup. Seems like to me. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I like to know everything that's ever been done to that pup, and I've messed so many of them up. It's unreal.
I think we all have.
And you will. Man, I've messed so many up. It's crazy, but you learn, don't you? Over the years. I mean, I've learned. But I had some of the best training. The guys, like I'm telling you earlier, some of them guys that the older guys I hunted with was probably some of the best that I've ever seen and probably ever will see. Dog men, and they taught me a lot. But I'm not the type to. I have to have a really natural dog,
Mm-hmm.
or in a dog you can get on to a little bit. I'm not going to be rough on them, but I like correct. I think they need corrected if you're going to have exactly what you're wanting. You know what I mean? I think that's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't correct one, I think you're on the wrong road. I mean, you can't make it do nothing. See, the cane dog, I trained him and I let Alan have him. You couldn't do nothing to him.
Okay.
So in order for him to get what he was, I had to just let him go. I mean, I had to just let him go. And every time he done something right, I'd pet him. That's it. I'd never touch him until he done something good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, man, he started running deer on me. That dog was fast. I mean, he was a fast. He could click a mile off on a GPS as fast as any dog I've ever seen in my life running deer. I've never. Well, he treated a gray fox over here in a tree one day, and I thought it was a bobcat. Seen his forehead, and I shot it, and the big tail stuck out on the side of the tree. I'm like, uh-oh. And it flopped down, and he was fast, I'm telling you. But anyway, that dog, he got to running deer on me, man, when he was about 7 months old. He started treeing young, and 7 months old, he would do nothing and he chopped just like he was treed. You would think that dog was treed. I guarantee you would. He just like, just like he treed. And I'd go up there to him, and there he'd be running, But anyway, one day there, for a month solid, he did that. But one day there, here he come around the side of that mountain, and he was coming right toward me. I said, man, I'm going to do something eventually. Jeez,
Yep.
Well, here he came, and I seen him, and I hadn't seen the deer come through, so I kind of stepped a little bit closer where I know he'd have to just about run over me. But here he came, and he seen me. He looked up when he's tracking. He's a flying, and he looked up and seen me because he smelled me, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, he looked up and noticed me, and I said, There's old stick. I said, Kane, quit that. And then he looked at me again. There was an old dead, rotten stick about as big as your leg laying there, and I just picked it up and just dropped it on him. It just fell apart when it hit his head. It just crumbled.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like you thought I killed him.
Mm-hmm.
He looked at his eyes, got as big around the saucer. He just staring at me, that dog quit running deer after that. I mean, he really did.
At least
that was about the end of the deer running. He started treeing again for me, but man, he was tough. I mean, he was a tough one. I generally can't train dogs like that. He had so much talent, and I could see it, and so I hated to, burn him because he had to have a soft, I couldn't get on him much. But now, Shadow, you could do whatever you want to that dog, but I mean, she just knows what you wanted her whole life. I don't know. I've never had a dog probably like her, and I'm sure I never will. I mean, that's just.
Yep.
She was just one of them that, if you looked at her, seemed like she knows what you're thinking. I don't know. I don't know how they do that. But
I've heard of a few like that. I've never had one, but I've heard of them.
I mean, I got her from a baby pup. David Shattuck's raised her, and got her from a baby puppy and brought her here at the house. And 7 weeks, well, this is what's odd, but anyway, brought her here at the house, and I've never heard a puppy scream like she did in my life. My kids, we finally went out there and got her and brought her in the house and kept her in the house. And I don't keep dogs in the house. That's that's something I don't do. We don't do that. I was raising dogs outside. That's just kind of anyway. So anyway, well, she screamed and screamed and screamed. Well, I called David Shattuck at daylight. I said, David, you still got one left? He said, yes. I said, well, I'm coming after one, another one, to keep her company, So I went there and got another and brought it back here and turned her and got him at 6 weeks old and turned him out. And by 7 or 8 weeks old, she was the huntingest pup I've ever seen, ever. I've never seen a 7, 8 week old puppy hunt like them pups. I mean, I never seen it before. They never on my porch. You look outside or go out on the porch and you see them all over the place. They's out in the field. They's over in the woods. They's running. Anyway, they got 8 weeks old. They was pretty smart pups, but they got to figuring out. One of them would stand there at the bottom there's a brush pile down there. Well, one of them would run up on the Shadow was the one who'd do it. She'd run up on that brush pile and stomp. Then she'd stop and look, waiting for these running ground squirrels out of that brush pile. Well, one day that didn't work too good. I was outside working on something behind the house, and they was in the front. They was in the brush pile, evidently, because they love running them ground squirrels out of that hole. Well, all of a sudden I heard her scream. And here she come, and the little feller, she's 8 weeks old, and she got bit by a rattlesnake. And when I got her, I throwed her in the house, and I run and got the gun and run down her to the brush pile, and it got away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the next day or 2 days later, she was down her little sister and fooling around the same brush pile, and I heard her scream. She screamed. I'm like, well, it's got her. Well, it dry bit her. It bit her on her ham.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it that time. I killed a snake. I kill them in my yard all the time on rattlesnakes. That's the only thing bad about where I live. They're in my yard pretty bad. But
yeah.
Anyway, full of Shadow laid in there, and only time I ever kept a dog in my house like that all that time, and my wife looked at me, and she was pretty bad about 5 days in. Her little foot busted open, and you can see every bone in her foot. Every tendon, every bone. I'm like, man, I thought myself she's gonna lose her foot. My wife come through and she said, is she going to die? And I was thinking that. And I didn't want to say nothing either. And I said, oh, no, she's not going to die. But I was thinking, if you're gone, I'm just going to take her and,
yep,
bury her. But she come out of it. But I gave her Benadryl, Motrin, and Tylenol. Well, and a Furazole spray is what I did for her. And she come out of it. To this day, she still runs on that foot, her 12 and a half. So
I'll tell you what, dogs are tough. That's for sure.
Yep, little feller, she got the tree in it, and I worked at Coca-Cola back then. I kind of thought my wife was. I didn't know what she was really doing. I said, anyway, she'd call me, and she's like, see, Shadow was running loose, so she'd follow her out the main road, and she's like, Shadow and Millie was the Miller's other one's name was Millie, but they chased her out the road. Well, and she couldn't have been 10 weeks old. Anyway, well, my wife had called me. She said, Shadow, I heard something, and they went over the hill, and she said, they're down in there barking. She said, well, I said, well, what are they doing? She said, I don't know. She said, I heard something, and they took off. She said, but there's a fence there. I said, well, you can't go get them. I said, just go on, And she kept calling me every morning. She said, these dogs is doing something. She kept telling me every morning. She said, I don't know what they're doing. She said, but I'm telling you, they're doing something. I just thought they was boohooing around it or something. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, at 3 weeks, right at 3 months, I called her treed here one day. I come in from work, and she was treed. And she was up there on the side of this mountain, 800 yards from my house, her 3 months old. And ever since that day, the dog is just, and she just always stayed treed and always hunted. I mean, never run a deer in her life. Just never done nothing you didn't want. I mean, it's just kind of funny, I guess. But
Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
She'd watch a deer, she'd watch a herd of deer, and just go right around them and go on and go tree.
Couldn't care less.
No, she just loved a coon, bark every breath on a coon track. Kind of funny to hear her run. I love to hear her run them. I mean, man, I coon hunted her. I didn't want to mess her up squirrel hunting because some dogs, it does mess them up. But I'd take her sometimes, and she could tree coons. First one we ever shot out to, my girl was with me, and I grazed its head, and she weighed 29 pounds, Shadow did. And here come that coon down that tree flying. I'm like, oh, no. And it looked like a big coon, and it stopped right before it got to the bottom. You know how they do.
Yep.
That coon looked around and looked for her, and it looked right at her, and it just straddled her. It jumped on top of her. That coon was mad, and I done, I grazed the side of his face. And, man, that was awful fight. My girl she was about, I don't know, she's pretty young, and she was screaming and crying, and that coon was whooping her. Shadow's head looked like it was humongous. Her head was the next few days out of that, but
yeah,
she was just a natural. Like I told you before, I'm a little better with dogs. It's pretty natural, and I kind of move them around until I find the right one. Because number one, I like to breed one and raise pups, and if you have to make them do everything they do, I don't quite think you're going to get what I want, out of them. I think you're going to get more dogs that does exactly the same thing that you had to do to them, to make them do what you wanted,
No, and I think that's a good point. I think, like you said, if you make the dog, it's not going to produce that necessarily.
Nope.
Most likely, actually.
I don't think so. I don't think there's no way.
Yeah.
I've heard people shock and I make them stay. I mean, I making them go. I just don't. Everybody hunts with me much will tell you I don't do none of that. I don't. I'm not saying I won't get on to a dog. I probably train mine different than a lot of people. I don't run into a dog in time. I never tie my dogs in a tree. Okay. You think I would be in competition hunter, don't you?
You would think. Typically, most competition
all of them
hunters do,
don't they? All competition hunters do. Besides me, I don't do that. You know why I don't do it? Because when I walk in there, I want them to have I want to have a reason to get on to them. I want to give them that chance. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I do different than everybody. Everybody else runs in and ties them as quick as they get. I don't do that. I just stand there and walk around them, And like a young dog, I'll stand there for 30 minutes. Until like a really, really young dog, when they start treeing, I'll stand there as long as they show interest in that tree. I stay there. Yep. I don't care if it's 30 minutes or an hour. I stay there with them. Unless the squirrel starts moving, I'll shoot it out to them then. But yeah, I give my dogs a chance to make a mistake is what I want them to do, Like Shadow, the first world hunt I won with her is what's wild. Me and Brad Jolly is a boy that has hunted with me a lot with Shadow. He used to go with me a ton. And anyway, me and Brad was hunting there, and we was in the world hunt, and Shadow treed the first world hunt we was in. First one I won with, the junior world hunt, she treed, and we went to her, and you got time in a competition hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tied her, and Brad looked at me, and I looked at Brad. She don't ever shut up. She's a tree dog. I mean, little dog just She just yappy, what I call her. She loves to bark. She loves to tree up a tree. That's her. Oh, she just goes nuts underneath the tree. Probably one of the hardest tree dog ever owned. But
Mm-hmm.
and she just standing there on that chain, just standing looking at me. Because the only time she ever had a chain on her is when I let her from the tree.
Yeah.
She thought, like, what are we doing? You're supposed to be leading me away, And Brad looked at me, and Brad said, she don't know what we're doing, does she? And I said, no, she don't have a clue. So the second or third tree, she figured it out, and she's standing there in this tree up a storm,
Mm-hmm.
But it's just funny. I mean, like I said, I kind of do dogs a little different than some people,
Yeah. Hey, but if it works for you, that's all that matters.
Well, it's worked on a few. I don't know about all of them, but it's worked on a few of them, But, yeah, we've had some good times over the years with them, that's for sure. But like I said, all them guys, I mean, they helped me with it. And Brad Jolly, he helped me a lot with Shadow. I mean, he hunted with me a lot. He's a good hard hunter. He was younger then. He's 20-year-old or so, and boy, he could hunt. He could run the dog pretty much.
Yeah. Now,
but
how was Shadow bred?
She was out of actually Alan's blackjack dog that I ended up with later on in life, later on in his life.
Okay.
The blackjack dog that Alan Franklin had.
Gotcha.
Okay, the cane dog I was telling you about I had earlier that I trained.
Mm-hmm.
Blackjack was the first litter out of Thundersport and Candy Jewel.
Okay.
And Kane was the second litter.
Gotcha.
Out of Thundersport and Candy Jewel. I liked that line of dogs. They was quick and kind of heads up, and fast, and they was just what I liked, and they was pretty natural. They had a real good wind and nose,
Mm-hmm.
Or I think they did anyway.
Yeah.
Shadow could tree stuff. She could make squirrels. I don't know. She could tree stuff. It wasn't, it just wasn't even. Middle of the day, that's when you didn't want to hunt against her in the competition. And Brack's like the hound dogs, but you didn't want to hunt with her in the middle of the day. I'm telling you. Because if you think about it, okay, if you think, she could run to a tree as fast as she could run and just slam it. I mean, Alan Franklin, Alan. Alan timed her one time, and he put it on a post one time. It was 6 seconds one tree and 15 seconds a tree.
Jeez.
I mean, she could just. It was just like she would just run to a tree, just bam, and she didn't run around with her head up, but she ran with her head up, but she didn't run around sticking it straight up there, and she just run kind of zip to a tree and just bam,
Mm-hmm.
just sit down tree. And anyway, that's just, that was a good line of dogs. Alan done good with that cross, and that was a really good cross, Sport and Jewel, and it had the Abbey dog and my cousin Mike Hamilton. I think you done a podcast with Mike, I think.
I did.
Me and Mike's first cousins. We lived 2 or 3 miles apart, all of our life. And, they was some good guys down in there. Like I said, some of the best squirrel hunters I've probably ever been around in my life to this day probably was down in that country.
Yeah.
A lot of the older guys, man, they just know dogs. I mean, they're just so good with a dog. I mean, they'd have a good dog every year. I mean, if they'd sell a dog and still have a good dog. They's that type of people. Could always get, everything out of a dog. It seems like that anybody could,
Yep. I've always been envious of guys like that. I remember hearing, when I was first started, my buddy Mike was like, yeah, there's this guy local, and he's like, he can go to the pound and find a dog. Now, granted, he's not you're not getting natural dogs there, but he can make a better squirrel dog than most people could out of a well-bred, cur dog or whatever.
Guarantee they could. I don't know how they do it neither. I don't know. My brother was a little better than me at that. I ain't gonna lie to you. I mean, I was, like I told you earlier, I like to, and not that I probably couldn't have trained some of them, because I did every now and then. I trained a few that was a little harder, but my brother is probably a little better. He was he's easier on them than I was, I guess you say.
Yeah.
He could take a dog, and if you told him it wouldn't tree, he would try to make it. He would try to make it then for sure. He was that type,
Yeah.
Well, if it didn't show me something pretty fast, I mean, I'm done with it. I mean, I just ain't got time. I mean, I just don't. I guess you got time, but I just feel like I'm wasting my time.
Yeah. I can understand that.
So a dog has got to kind of show something, as far as what they're going to do, So, but they was a lot of legends around. A lot of the older guys around here was legends to me, I guess, which I was younger than them.
Yeah.
They were sure good at it. I mean, like Bernie and Howard, and boy, they had some real dogs. I mean, which they show up in dogs today still yet. I mean, like that old, like the Bud Dog of Adam O'Donnell's, I had an old dog called Streak Spin, and I got him from Howard Smith, and Bernie Rubel's one who raised him, and out of Bernie's really good female he had, man, she was bad as the bone back in that little female this day. You could win a ton of money with those Goldies of this day. She was fast. She's my kind of dog. When she come on a tree, she was done treeing. I mean, there wasn't no looking around, or smelling when Goldie come on that tree. I've seen her be going towards a tree and be looking up and be barking at the same time. She'd be 10 foot in this tree. She'd be coming on that tree, sliding in there, man, and she just, you couldn't beat her. I mean, I'm telling you, when she was on, I mean, she was bad. She was a bad cat, but she was on.
Yeah.
She won a couple world hunts. Oh, that was back in the old USDR days. Do you ever remember that? Have you ever heard of that?
I think so.
Okay. United Squirrel Dog Registry is what it was called.
Yeah.
USDR. It was out of Texas, that Manning guy. He was a Manning.
Okay.
You ever heard of Manning's Texas Smoke?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. He was the first ever USDR world champion, and the Manning guy had the registry too, but the Smoke dogs is pretty good dogs. I mean, they was actually Mountain Cur dogs, OMCBA dogs, but
gotcha.
Anyway, that was just a little bit of something that a lot of people never heard of as USDR. That was a long time ago, and they didn't last probably 10 years or something, maybe like that or something.
That was like early 2000s, wasn't it?
Well, might even be a little earlier than that, because I tell you what it was, because I had that little Bonnie dog. I got 6th place in the world hunt with her that year, and she was 9 months old, a little black female.
Okay.
Got her from Peanut Beatty, if you've probably heard of Peanut, I guess.
I have.
Me and Peanut, I used to stay at Peanut's house all the time when I was young, when I was 20, 22, 24. So that was about 94.
Okay.
93, 92. So it was pretty early, and after like I said, 86 or 7 was the first world hunt I ever remember, and it was in KC, what I remember.
Gotcha.
1990 was the first OMCBA world hunt, best I can remember, too. It was in Holly Bluff, Mississippi. So, yeah, yep.
I would have honestly thought that there was more like competition squirrel hunts with OMCBA earlier than that.
You think that, don't you? But no, they wasn't. Well, they wasn't no world hunt anyway. I mean, they had a few squirrel hunts, a little bit before that, but they wasn't no world hunts or nothing like that to that effect. They was hunts before that, but it wasn't. People didn't get it. Tell you, when you say world champion, it just makes people want to do it. I mean, honestly, it just, you just say they're having you won the fall hunt or the June hunt. You don't really think much of it,
Yep.
Or, most people don't, I guess. But they was, like I said, man, they was some good dogs around here back in the 90s. Goodness. I'd like to have about, man, I can just name off of dozens of dogs around here in the 90s. Man, they was some real dogs at that time around here.
Yeah.
Fast, quick. I mean, they was quick and accurate. I mean, they was quick was what the main thing was. They could get treed like now, they wouldn't mess around, and to me, a competition dog is speed. I mean, that's the majority of it. I mean, if you can get there the fastest and have a coon or a squirrel, you're going to win.
Yeah. That's
just the way it is, ain't it?
Like, granted, I have more experience with competition coon hunting, just as far as, casts that I've been out on, but oftentimes the first dog to strike and tree a coon is the dog that's going to win.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's every time, but I'm just saying oftentimes that is the dog that's going to win.
Squirrel hunt's not quite as like that. Mm-hmm. Man, you can put a bunch of squirrels up in a hurry, you know. I mean, I remember I was in, can't remember what hunt it was. I had Shadow in one time. And anyway, at least I don't know how many people was with us. There was several people on the cast. You know, a lot of people like going with you. But anyway, there's a bunch of people there. And there's like 2 minutes left. And she'd had a squirrel, and that put her for her head that they was wanting to quit. And they said, well, you can't tree a squirrel in 2 minutes. I said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, yes, you can. I turned her loose, and I'm telling you, it wasn't 30 seconds. And bam, and she was just every breath. And I said, tree her. I said, yeah, she can tree one a whole lot less than 2 minutes, you know. But we got a ton of squirrels here. I mean, a lot of people don't realize. If you ever hear Jamestown, you hear, well, they ain't got no squirrels. But you can ask Alan Franklin. When we got squirrels here, you'll tree more squirrels. He says it. And I've seen it too. They sit up. I don't know what it is around here, but they sit up, and there will be a squirrel in every tree down through you. And if you got a dog that can pick them off, they got to have a certain nose to do that. Don't get me wrong, but if you got a dog that can pick them off, oh man, you can tree. He come down here. I had Kane, and Kane was 18 months. He might not have been that old. He's probably 12 months old at this point. Yeah, it's January because he's 11 months old. Anyway, me and him and Don Baker went. This one, Alan had to have Kane at this point after this hunt. We turned him loose. You can ask him. And we turned him loose. And I think it was 14 squirrels in about an hour and a half. Oh, wow. 14 trees and 14 squirrels. We got back to the truck, and Don was like, man, y'all treat a bunch of them. And Alan's like, he's like, man, I got to have that dog. I said, Alan, I don't want to sell him. You know, I mean, and from that point on, Alan had to have Kane, you know, and I sold him to him when he turned 2 years old. But he was a nice dog. I mean, don't get me wrong. But like I said, going back to, you hear Jamestown, you think there ain't no squirrels, but we live kind of below the mountain. Mm-hmm. That's what we call it. Okay. We still live in the mountains. We call it below the mountain. And from Jamestown, you got to go up to go to Jamestown, but we still live in the mountains here. But we got plenty of game. When we got game here, you won't tree no more game than you can around here as far as squirrels, but no, not coons. No, okay. Coons is always tough here. Always. I mean, I've never seen coons where you could just all night long, 7, 8 coons. You can't do it here. Coon or two an hour is really good. Okay. I mean, that's doing great, but yeah, we ain't got the luxury of a bunch of coons. So, but yeah, that's kind of some of it. Yeah.
Now, what did you hunt before? You got Shadow and some of these the Allen's stuff. What did you hunt back in the day?
Okay.
You kind of mentioned you got some dogs here and there, but I'm just curious as like
peanut baiting.
Okay.
I got some dogs for peanut first. Let's see. Bonnie was out of Peanut's dogs, and I hunted several dogs for Peanut back in the day, back in the early 90s, I guess. Yeah, that's fairly early 90s. But even before that, I guess, let's go in before that, I guess. Before that, we had a half OMCBA dog and half bulldog one time. She was a little Bonnie dog. She was a real little dog. Had a half Airedale one time and a half Mountain Curs, a real dog. He just wouldn't bark much. Mm-hmm. He would bark, and then every 30 seconds, he never leave a tree, but he wouldn't bark but once every 30 seconds or so. And we beat a lot of people around here, and we took him to a few competition hunts even. He's long-haired, like a Airedale. Yep. But he's half OMCBA is what he was. But we had some few mixed up ones, but the very first OMCBA dogs is probably, and actually the first squirrel dogs probably we flew with a lot was, there's a guy called Willie D. Squallas here in town. And he had dogs. They was directly he had like 3 or 4 females, and he just raised dogs. He really didn't hunt them a lot. Okay. But all his dogs was directly out of Catoosa Rusty. I don't know if you ever heard of that dog before. The Jimmy Hoover and Roger Hoover dogs. You ever heard of Jimmy and Roger?
Yeah.
Okay, Catoosa Rusty was his name, and then females was all directly out of Catoosa Rusty, and his male dog was directly out of the big Ted dog that A.D. Ledbetter had.
Okay.
And he was a big black dog. And he'd breed them together, and that's where we got a lot of the first OMCBA dogs we ever had, which they was even before Bonnie and them, because my dad always was picking something up. You know, he would, we had the Mountain Cur dogs, but he'd always pick something else up too if there was something around, you know.
Yeah.
He, as far as cur dogs, you know, he'd pick us up something. And like I said, Doc Music and Rod Padgett to come through every year, and they would try to buy them from us every year. But about this time of the year,
yeah,
they come through and see if we sell them one. You know, I never forget Doc Music took old Bonnie up there with him, that little half bulldog, and man, I hated seeing her go. Little yellow and white dog. She was not a mean bone in her body, but she could kill she weighed 30 pounds and she could kill a bear, I believe. She was just so gritty. You know, had that bulldog in her.
Yep.
She was gritty. Don't think she wasn't. I mean, she don't know she'd kill a bear, but I'm telling you, she'd hang on to one. I bet you.
Yeah.
She just gritty. And anyway, Doc took her up there, and Doc called Dad back about a week later. He said, Jack, he said, this dog won't hunt a lick for me. Dad said, I tell you what you do. He said, you bring her back here. He said, I'm sick we ever saw the dog. He said, you just bring her back. Doc said, oh, no. He said, I'll keep her another week or two. And well, about 2 or 3 weeks later, Doc called and he said, no. I said, you ain't going to get her back now.
Yeah.
Dad said, oh, all right. He said, I wish we would. He said, okay.
Yeah.
And that's them little cur dogs is a little funny, ain't you? I mean, she was around us all of her life. I mean, she never been away from us, you know.
Yep. I bought one several years ago, and a buddy of mine went and trialed her, said, yeah, she's a good dog. I said, all right, we'll buy her and I'll be out there in a couple weeks. So I went out and picked her up and we hunted her a couple nights, and she wasn't hunting good, just missing and leaving, would make a tree, but then would leave it. And he goes, man, this dog's not the same as it was the 2 nights that I hunted with it. I hunted her before I bought her for you. He tried to get my money back from the guy, and the guy was just being difficult. And I said, well, I guess I'll take her home and hunt her. Basically, she just needed to become my buddy. And then once after that, we were good.
Yep. The cane dog I was telling you about earlier, I sold him to Alan.
Mm-hmm.
Alan hated to tell me this, and he didn't want to. He hated to say that he wasn't the same dog for him as he was for me.
Yeah.
And he called me one time. He finally told me that. I said, I'll tell you what you do, Alan. I said, if I don't do this to him, I didn't tell you this. If I don't do this to him, he would circle and come back and look at me until I'd done this to him. I said, it's kind of odd, I know, but he wants me to do this every time I unsnap him. And I'd take his collar on my left hand, and I'd take him, pat him twice on his side. And if I didn't do that when I let that dog loose, he would make a circle and come back and stop and look at me. I didn't know what it was. First time or two he done it, I'm like, what are you doing? And I said, wait a minute. I didn't tap you on the side, did I? So here he come. He come over. I said, well, come here. He come over to me, and I'd grab him by the collar, and I'd tap him. And, man, he would shoot out of he was fast.
Yeah.
And he would shoot out there. He would throw gravel, grass head high, taking out through there. He was.
That's funny.
That's wild, ain't it? He had that. Alan said, he's my dog now. That's the exact words he told me. He said, he's my dog now. When he called me the next time.
Yep.
And he won the world hunt that fall with him, that winter.
He's just conditioned to. He
liked me, and he knowed I'd done that. He just knowed I'd done that, didn't he? Every time, and it's just wild. He would come back and look at me, and I forgot it. I'm like, well, come here. I forgot, didn't I? I realized it after I did. If I didn't do it, I know that I didn't. I'm like, well, come over here, and I'd grab him and hold him by the collar and then tap him, and he was like a maniac, taking out through there. But yeah, they was. I got blessed to have some good dogs in my life, I guess. So far. Like to have a few more like some of them I have had. I mean, I don't know if that's ever going to happen again, but you never know, do you? You just gotta. That's the whole key to it, I guess. Is the fun of it is actually trying to get the next one, I guess.
Yep. Now, what are you hunting right now?
Hunting a male dog actually hunting 2 out of Shadow. I've got a male dog out of Hummer and Shadow, which they both reproduce really. I'd call them dominant reproducers. I mean, I think it would. Hummer's a real good reproducer, and I bred Shadow to 7 males, and she got world champions out of different males, and they ain't a pup out of a herd that won't tree squirrels and do a pretty decent job, you know. So we bred them together and I got 2 litters of pups out of Hummer and Shadow, and anyway, Thunder's one of them, and he's just a real good dog. He took that trend from the Duff Spot. That's the one I got. He's one of the few. There's 18 of them, I think, out of that cross. He's really the only one I've seen that's got that trait. Okay. You know, that stomping, and you know, man, he was born a tree. Actually, Scott Ingle. You know Scott Ingle?
Yep.
Okay. I sold him to Scott Ingle as a baby puppy.
Okay.
And Scott started him. He told me first time he ever took him, he treed 3 times. He said, "This is the easiest pup I've ever started in my life," and it's his favorite pup he said he ever started. And that November, he called me. He said, "I'm going to sell this pup." I said, "Well, I'd sure like to have him back." And anyway, Scott is the man that started the dog. So
yeah,
he said he wasn't nothing to starting him though. He said he just took him one time and he treated 3 times. So
that's great.
So they was the most natural. That cross is the most natural dogs besides her I've ever messed with. You know, you just turn them loose and they treat stuff. You know, I ain't had that since, honestly. I mean, them dogs are just so easy. You know, hunting him, and got another male dog out of Shadow, and a dog called Asher, and he's a black dog too, which I like black dogs. And Thunder's black, and my Crow dog's black. He got the name Crow because him being black, I guess. But
okay.
But I just like black dogs, you know. And Crow's a real good dog. He's a real stay put dog, real good mouth on him, but and accurate. He's really accurate. Now Thunder's a little bit more competition type. I mean, he's not going to go and not tree all day. I mean, he just can't handle it. You know, he's going to tree somewhere eventually. I mean, but he don't come. But that's what's why he does that on Squirrel. You take that dude of a night, he'll never. When he trees, you kill a coon, and if he don't hit one, I mean, he'll be a mile and a half from him. I mean, he don't come back. Yeah. I mean, I have to tone him back to me. And you think he do the same thing. He loves a coon. That dog actually, the dog likes a coon better than a squirrel even, really. He loves coons. Because he started treating them in the daytime, and I've treated 4 coons in the daytime in my lifetime. You don't treat coons here in the daytime. It's just about impossible. The pole Thunder treat 2 in 2 weeks. You just don't do that. Yeah. When he done that, I'm like, man, this dog loves a coon.
For sure.
First night I took him, 500 yards, bam, treed, walked in there to him, shot a coon out to him. I'm like, well, I think you like a coon.
Yeah.
You know, but he's dead silent. Only thing I like about him, he is absolutely stone cold silent. I think if he's looking at one, he would not say a thing.
Yeah.
He won't say nothing if he's running a coon. All I can tell, the only thing I don't like about hunting him of a night, I sit there and look at the Garmin and watch him when he hits a coon. I can tell because the way he moves.
Yeah.
You know, I know how he hunts. You know, if you know your dog, you know how he hunts. You know, on the Garmin.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see him hit that coon on that Garmin. I'm like, well, he's fixing a tree pretty quick. You know, and it won't be long. He'll be in there treed somewhere. But he's one of my main dogs, I guess. And you know, he's won I don't know $20,000 in USDC. And
oh wow.
Well, he's a reserve UKC world champion and been in the final 3 of the world hunts. I don't know. This last November, March, me and him and his litter mate, H2 dog that Jeremy Nichols has, we was in the finals of the NKC world hunt together. That don't happen very often.
Yeah.
Two dogs got the same exact cross in the finals in the world hunt, you know. Yep. But yeah, me and H2 was in the finals of the world hunt with each other last spring, and H2 won. And I was really proud of Jeremy and H2 both. But
yeah.
But we've had some fun with them anyway.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it.
Oh yeah, and had some fun with some of the guys too. And before I let you go, I probably told you this story, but did I tell you the story about me and Charles Giesland, the guy that hunted with me several years there in the gun?
I don't think so.
Really? Okay, anyway. Well, me and Charles, this is back in the 90s probably. had a little dog called Ted back in the day. He was he's a good little squirrel dog. But my dad had old Heritage racing gun. This is it's a story. I just never forget it probably. Anyway, my dad had old Heritage racing single shot, right? This thing was a full choke, and I'm telling you, it was probably the most shootingest gun I've probably ever seen in my life. You know, you could just about tear a squirrel in two with that thing. The 20 gauge, right?
Okay.
Well, me and Charles was pretty flat out there where we was at, and Ted was treed out there, and me and Charles walking to him, and big old humongous poplars. Around here, you can see a squirrel a long ways off. I don't know if it's where our woods is or what, but anyway, you walk into the tree, you can see a squirrel pretty good piece. But I said, Charles, stop. He looked at me, he said, what? I said, I see that squirrel all the way from here. He looked up there and he said, I see it too. I said, I had this in mind the whole time, and I said, I think I can hit it. Charles, I think I can knock it out with this 20 gauge. He's like, no. He said, you can't hit that squirrel from here. He just snickered at me. And I said, well, okay. So anyway, I threw that 20 gauge up there and shot. And man, that squirrel, you know how they kind of roll up like a rabbit? You know, they just kind of curl up.
Yep.
That thing curled up and all the way down and hit the ground. Dogs got it. And it's pretty good little jump from a tree. But anyway, me and Charles walked up there at the tree and we grabbed that squirrel up. I looked at it and I said, well, Charles always kept the bag. He always, I don't know. I never did. I always packed him in my hand, you know, with a stick. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but anyway, Charles always had a bag. So Charles said, I'm going to put in your bag, Charles. Well, I put it in there, and it wasn't just a minute. The dogs treed again. Well, he's down there at that tree. And anyway, I stand there and we always stay on each side of the tree, right? You know, from each other, you know, because you can find a squirrel, you know, it's turning. But Charles over there, and I looking up at the tree, and I look at Charles every now and then, and Charles was acting funny. And he was jerking, and he'd look back around him, and he'd look around, and I look at the ground. I'm like, Charles, I said, what are you doing? He said, there's a stick or something in my back here. And I'm telling you, about that time I started to walk towards you a little bit. I said, I sure ain't no stick back there. About that time, that squirrel, I still this thing. Anyway, that squirrel come out of his backpack, run up on the top of his shoulder, and sit there. And Charles looked over at it. You know, he felt it. He looked at it, and it kind of startled him.
Yeah.
He's like, man. And he started shaking his arms, you know, and trying to shake it. And that squirrel would run down his leg a little bit, about his waist, and here it come back up. And it's scared to jump down, I guess. Well, it run back up. Well, it run out his arm, and it ran back up. And I looked at him, and I was going towards him with that gun. I said, and I just kidding him, you know. I said, Charles, I said, hold still. I said, I'll shoot it off of you. He started running towards me, laying with his hands up. No, he said, don't shoot. I was just aggravating. Me and him, if you know me and Charles, always something goes on. But anyway, and I just aggravate. We always go on with each other all the time. He's like, no, he said, don't shoot. He's waved his hands, you know, like back and forth, and that squirrel was still on him.
Sounds like the Mississippi Squirrel Revival.
Yes. Well, about that time, the dog seen it. We hear the dog seen that squirrel on Charles. We hear the dogs run towards him. Where them dogs was all around him trying to get that squirrel around and around. Where that squirrel finally jumped off, and it was just crazy. And we shot that squirrel. You know what crazy was? That squirrel must have had so much adrenaline in it. Charles shot that thing with a 22 2 or 3 times before it killed it.
Jeez.
It must have had so much adrenaline. It was scared to death, I guess. I don't know, but that was probably one of the funniest. But me and Charles has got a lot of funny stuff because every time me and him was out, something crazy happened about every time. He's one of those guys, you know, you have that hunting partner that something crazy happens to every time you and him.
Yep.
Well, that's Charles. But yeah, I had so much fun with him over the years. I'd get off from work in road construction, and it'd rain, and he'd be calling the house. Back then we didn't have cell phones. He'd be calling the house. You home yet? Are you ready? I said, oh yeah. I said, just give me a few minutes. I'd get ready. We'd head out, you know, somewhere. But that's we've had some times with them.
It sounds like it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, sure have. But that's one of the funny stories anyway. I thought,
Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap this one up, Bobby. I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me tonight.
Yes, sir.
Enjoyed this.
It's
like
pretty good. It's pretty good remembering all the old guys. I mean, all them guys is mostly dead and gone now. Majority of them, man, it's kind of remembering them. It's something.
Mm-hmm.
They was some good ones back in them days. Them guys they was something else.
Yeah.
Sure was.
We're definitely gonna have to get you back on to talk about the old guys from the OMCBA and grew up around. And like I said, I think you kind of grew up in the squirrel hunting mecca there for quite a long time. So.
Oh yeah, we had them for a long time for sure.
But like I said, I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.